I'm Rachel Olsen. I am an EMT and I volunteer at the Mapleton Fire Department. My first love is wilderness medicine. And wilderness medicine is when you go out to the wilderness and you get injured. Then I take care of you. So if you're going on a backpacking trip, if you're at a week-long camp to learn primitive skills, if you're on a travel thing, it's just we make a decision on if you can continue your activity. Can we take care of you, or if we need to get you to the next level of care? So, me looking at you guys, I am so excited that you're here, because this is what we at my level rely on. So you are the first line of care when it comes to emergency situations. You are the first line of care when it comes to emergency situations. So if dad hits his head and falls on the ground and you're the only one in the house, who's going to be the first one to take care of him? So if it wasn't for you guys, we would be dealing with a lot of dead patients. So it is so relieving to see you guys in here, ready to learn the first level. The way that medicine works is that we are basically trying to stabilize you at whatever level you're at. So if you can be stabilized with home care, you're taken care of. If you can't, then the EMT comes and we come and stabilize you there, or we take you into the next level, which is the emergency department. They try to stabilize you there, and if they can't, they go to the next level, which is the operating room or a specialist. So essentially, everybody knows their skill level. They know how to basically take care of you at that level and until you need more care, right? So that is what I do. I take care of you in a situation that hopefully can keep you having fun, but if you can't, then I bring you to the next level. So, any questions on that one? Yeah. All right. Okay. That's first aid defined. So here's what we're going to cover, and it really depends on what you guys want to learn. So I will cater this to what your interests are. All right. We have basic first aid, which if I was to teach a normal first aid class, it would include your basic first aid, your CPR, and how to use an AED, which is when you have a heart attack, a set machine they put on your chest to shock you back into it. That would take about 2 hours to teach. We're not going to do that. We're going to give you a very basic rundown of first aid and test your level and skills. So that's the first one that we can take a lot of time on, because I don't plan on being here longer than an hour. Anyone who wants to talk to me about anything after that is welcome to stay. So the second one is home medicine, your basic first aid kit, and the kind of medicines that you should probably have in stock as part of your emergency preparedness. Okay, so that's another one that we can do, as well as we're going to talk about how to mentally prepare for those emergencies as well. Who wants to focus more on first aid versus emergency home? Hi, Linda! Versus emergency home preparedness. So this is first aid. This is more how to stock your home so you're ready for an emergency. First aid, more in that category. Stock your home for emergencies. Okay, so we will definitely spend time on all of that. I'll just kind of focus on some things a little bit more than another. And if you come, I have a little short period at the end to answer whatever questions that you have. I want to quickly introduce Jake Smith. Jake, can you tell them a little bit about your background and what you know and how you know it?
Sure. I've been interested in medicine, wilderness medicine, for a lot of years. I ran a wilderness therapy program. So I had to get EMT trained to be able to train my staff in a certification called Wilderness First Responder. And so I had to get that level of training. And while in the EMT class, I kept thinking, I'm in the wilderness, because they're training me to be on an ambulance. And I kept thinking, I'm never gonna have a traction stunt. I'm never gonna have any of this. So I didn't really pay attention. I just did enough to get by. And then I focused on wilderness stuff. Well, come a few years later, when I wanted to volunteer at a fire department, I basically had to retake all the course because I hadn't done it. But yeah, Rachel's more advanced than I am in her medical training, for sure.
Yeah, he's the one who, so I mentioned this briefly before. The reason I got into what I do is because of this one right here. That one, Liberty, is fairly safe. This one manages to find all sorts of ways to spike my adrenaline response. I watched him take care of these, and I'm like, I want to learn that. And so that's how I got into it. So he's taught me a lot of what you'll hear today, and he can clarify a little bit more. Okay, so let's go into basic first aid. I'm curious to know what your guys' background is. Who has had CPR training? Fantastic. Who has had it recently? Okay, so that's the reason, the only reason I bring that up is because research has found that if you don't use or study things after a 3-month period, you lose it, right? And the whole purpose of preparedness is to not be afraid. The more you prepare, the less fear you'll have in those moments, and you'll be able to recall those things. Now, we have the Holy Ghost working with us, and he's going to be a master at helping you recall the information you need when you need it. I have found that to be true over and over and over again, both in volunteering, at home, and out in the wilderness. Things I vaguely remember studying came back. Things I didn't think I would need on a trip, I grabbed. So those are just constants. The Holy Ghost is there to help you trust it. It's there for a reason. He's wonderful. I love him. Where was I?
CPR.
CPR, thank you. Okay, who uses their medical knowledge in a professional capacity? Just so anyone there? Okay. Anybody have someone that they've worked with in their home in a medical capacity? They have to take care of them. You don't have to take care of me yet, but I know, yeah, you kind of do. So you do. So that gives you a little bit more of a knowledge base that you might, well, if you've got insights that you can tell us, right? And if you're not there, you probably will be soon. I apologize, it's just the cycle of life. So, all right, so let's test your guys' knowledge. We're going to go, well, before we do that, I want to put you guys, so on the back of this paper right here, you're gonna see that I have a couple of acronyms that you guys can follow. The first one is my ABCs. Sometimes when you hear about ABCs in CPR classes, it's airway, it's breathing, and it's circulation. Those are all things you have to watch for in order to keep a body alive. This one is for your mental awareness, and I couldn't remember D. What was D? It was so good, and I'm like, I can't think of it. Can you remember D?
For the ABCs?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so my ABCs. The number one thing, yes, Boston?
Sorry, I was waiting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. My ABC. So the number one thing that they teach first responders is to always take care of yourself first. Make sure that the scene that you're at is safe. Now, we're going to be talking about natural disasters. We'll be talking about home emergencies. So in any aspect of this, personal safety is number one in the things that you guys need to remember. And I'm going to have Jake share a story because it kind of sits in your brain a little bit better when you have a story about someone that looked into their personal safety first and how that ended up being a problem for the people they were trying to help. And that's when it is the electrical power.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to switch it.
Yeah. While serving my mission on the Yucatan Peninsula, some of you have heard this story because some of you have been to this class before. But I lived through a hurricane, and the hurricane story is a whole different preparedness story that I have. But I think it was the next day after the hurricane, we had taken stock. Nobody had died. Everybody was safe. After we checked on all the elders, we were checking on ward, our ward that we pertain to, and came to find out that one of the young men that had been going on splits, I know we're not supposed to call them splits, exchanges, right, President? Yeah, exchanges. he had been electrocuted and died. And it's a really sad story. His name was Danielle. And power lines were down everywhere, and there was huge puddles of water. And all the power lines were down. I think that everybody just thought there was no power. And he was attempting to walk through this puddle that was maybe 6 inches of water. It was really deep, there was water everywhere. And he stepped into it and began to be shocked. There was a downed power line that was in it, and somehow there was still electricity going to this power line. And he fell forward and was in the water being electrocuted. And the kid that he was with ran up, and what do you think he tried to do? Grabbed him, right? So he grabbed him, and what do you think happened? He got shocked, and he fell backwards, right? And he stood up, tried to grab him again, and got shocked again. So I tell this story because I probably would have done the exact same thing. I'm not finding fault with the other young man who was there. But had he known that power line was in the water only by about 3 inches, he could have taken a stick, a wooden stick, and moved that power line, and Danielle wouldn't have died, because Danielle didn't get electrocuted to death, he drowned. So he was in that water and he drowned. And so you've just got to, when we say take a second and evaluate the scene and make sure the scene is safe, your fight or flight, we want to get something done, right? We want to take care of something, but try to calm yourself, look around, see what there is to see. And I bet this kid could have figured it out really easily, because the police did. They showed up, they moved the line, they got Danielle out, they tried to do CPR, and it had been too long. But yeah.
So even firefighters fall short in this when they see one of their people go down because of chemicals in the air, and they rush into the situation because it's invisible. And they want to help, but all of a sudden we got down firefighters, and the people we are sending in to help can't help. So if your personal safety makes it possible for you to help other people. So ingrained into all first responders' brains is my scene safe? And that should just be something you think every time you approach a situation, whether it's in your home and your kid's got their finger in the socket and you want to grab them. Just know that that's going to make it so that the scene's not safe for you or for your child any longer. So, okay, the next one is to be alert and aware. It goes right into my personal safety. The alert and aware is just constantly being in a frame of mind that lets you know what's going around you. What are the dangers that are here? Whether you're out away from the home and you think that that fire pit is cold, and it's not. You walk through it barefooted, you got burns, and telling stories that have happened. So there's those kind of being aware of where you're at. The second one is to be brave. You are lining yourself up with knowledge right now. And what we as the next level of care really need from you guys is for you to be brave, to act on that knowledge and know that whatever you do is going to help. And that could mean 5 more minutes for that person for us to get to them. And it's nice to be brave. Even if you're little and it's scary to be the one that's in charge of an adult, you guys can do massive things and change a situation around really quickly. The third one is the one that I find that is the most important of the ABCs, and it's to be calm. When you think about your heart and what happens when you get injured, or you see a loved one injured, chances are it's beating a mile a minute, right? And if you're the one that's injured, say you get bit by a rattlesnake, you're out and hiking and you get bit by a rattlesnake, what happens to all that toxin that's in your body if you cannot calm yourself down? Yeah, it cycles through your body so quick, which is why they encourage people who are bit by rattlesnakes to stay still, to elevate the part that's bit away from their heart, and to start calming down. You as a person who's not injured can do so much for the people that are injured. I can't tell you the number of times that someone has decided to climb a tree and jump off of it and land on, you know, I don't know, a limb that may be sticking out of the ground that he might need stitches, you know, and brings in a bloody foot.
The branch broke.
Okay. or maybe they don't wear a chest plate and they break their ribs motorcycling. Or maybe, you know, they decide the best way to go down the decline at church is to put their hands in their pockets and run at full speed and face plant and just kind of skid off the pavement. You never know. Those kind of things kind of make your adrenaline go a little bit. But if you can stay calm yourself, you can help them stay calm, so that blood can flow. Because another factor that goes in is if you cut yourself, and I've done this where you kind of like either freak out or you go into shock. It's one or the other. But if you can teach yourself to calm down, you will be able to stop and work the situation a lot better. Something that I teach kids all the time is the best way to calm yourself down when you are in a situation where you're just, my body is open. There is blood coming out, or there's blood coming out of my mom, or my dad's not conscious, is to just take a second. And it's really simple, but and you guys can do it with me, is you just smell those flowers. So you take a deep breath with your nose and smell the flowers. And you blow out the candles. And you do that as many times as you need to. You might get a little lightheaded, but those are the things that can get your heart to calm down. So if your medications stop working, if you are faced with a loved one who has gone into a heart attack situation, calm yourself. I promise it'll make everything better. So that is.
I think I remember the D.
Say it again. Is it?
Do something.
Do something.
Right?
Do something.
Yeah.
Do not be afraid to do something. That is more important than anything else. You guys give us that make or break time to get the help they need. Do something.
A lot of people are really nervous because they're like, I've only sat through a little class right here, but doing something is better than doing nothing, generally.
Listen to the promptings of the Spirit. I'll help you do that something that might make a difference. Okay. So we're going to move into the first aid. I'm going to present a couple of scenarios to you guys. We're just going to test your level. So the kids can answer this too. And if you guys can get it right, in that first aid kit, there are a bunch of things listed here. And I have some giveaways for that first aid kit. Okay. So if we can get the scenarios, we got to raise hands. And I am going to defer to my people before I defer to my people. Okay. So number one, we're gonna talk about stopping the pain, stopping the burn, and stopping the bleed. Those three ones are the ones that we're gonna talk about. So these are the scenarios, and we're just gonna test our basic knowledge real quick, okay? So let's start with a stop the burn scenario. So a stop the burn scenario would be that mom needs to go down to the pantry to get a canned good, but she's left a pot of water on the stove boiling, and you have been asked to watch it and make sure it doesn't boil over. So you go up and you notice that the handle is sticking out of the stove, and you decide to move it to the side a little bit so it's safer. And in the process of moving it, you dump that boiling hot water all over your arm. What do you do? If you know, raise your hand. You get the prize. Yes.
Water.
Water. Hot water?
No.
Cold water? You get the prize. You get 2 triangular bandages. Okay, that is on the list right there. Thank you. You got to stop the burn, because what does something do once it starts cooking? It continues to cook. It continues to cook until you cool it off. So the very first thing you do when you burn yourself is find some water, hopefully cold water, and run it under there. How long should you run water on it?
20 minutes.
20 minutes, or until it feels better. But at least 20 minutes. It does take that long to get it to cool off. What if you're in a wilderness scenario or away from cold running water where there's some options? This is the part where I need you guys to think outside of the box, because this is what home medicine is thinking outside of the box with what you got, right? Yeah.
Could you use like dirt maybe to cool it off?
Something that you could create into a paste, maybe. The only issue with that is it depends on the level of burn. And so you don't want to be adding too much to it. That could make it difficult. It just cooks into the skin, right?
The aloe vera plant,
Say it again.
aloe vera.
Aloe vera is great. Aloe vera is great.
Yeah, I want that.
This man's a master at thinking outside of the box, but yes.
Water bottles and creeks and rivers and
Yeah.
lakes.
Who has a pocket knife? Okay, come up here and poke a hole in this real quick. I always carry this in my first aid kit on the side here. When, if the person's dehydrated, I have something that's pure and clean that I can put into it. But the number one reason is for this purpose. She's going to safely pop a hole into the top of that lid. Because what you need both for wounds, thank you, that's perfect. What you need for both wounds and for water is a steady source of water that's under pressure, right? So this isn't gonna work terrific for burns, because it's gonna come out quite fast. But if you have, let's say you went for the dirt first, and it's finally feeling cooler, and you wanna be able to, get that dirt out, this is a great process. So you got this pressurized water now that can clean out that wound, right? Stays clean, so then you can use it for other things. So that makes sense. So that's a great option. There's another one, Jake. Can you think of anything?
I mean, putting any water on it, covering it with like a bandana or a t-shirt, but then fanning it is a way to pull heat out of it, stuff like that.
Leaves, spas.
Yes.
It's not out of the box thinking, but I always have burn cream in my first aid
Burn
kit.
cream is fantastic. Once you get that down, once you get the cooking stopped, that's essential. So something that you can keep in your home kit, and it should be on there. Let's see if it's on there. It's often listed as silver or burn cream. So any kind, I've got three things that I use. We got Armor Gel. Are you guys familiar with Armor Gel? We'll pull all these out later for you guys to see. We have Armor Gel, which has silver in it. Silver stops the burn as well as keeps all the different infections that can create, that have been opened up for it. So that's Armor Gel. There's also Silver X, I can't say it.
Wait, what's that green stuff? Like the band-
Yeah, so the green stuff is a silver gel, and I love that, and I didn't bring that because that's not readily available. But Silvex is also burn proof. So you guys can all come up here and look at these. I keep both. Both of them are used to keep infections out of the wounds. Anything else you want to say about that, Julie? Okay. Okay, another burn. Your clothes catch fire. You lean too close to a fireplace and your clothes catch fire. Yes. How difficult is it to remember to do that? Is that so hard? This is another thing I use for burns. We'll talk about honey in just a minute. In fact, this is what all this is. This is another thing I use for burns, but you can eat it too. Okay, so there's honey. Yeah, you stop, drop, and roll. And when you're panicked, are you gonna wanna do that? No. So you may have to tackle the person who's running and stop and cover them. So those are kind of our burn situations. Knowing the difference between first, second, and third degree burn is really important. It's too much to teach in this class, but I have some books over here that if you guys wanna look at those are also listed as resources on the back. And knowing how much of the body is burned. What are the secondary injuries that happen as a result of burns? Infection is one. What's another one that hits pretty quickly if you've got a large surface? Dehydration. Your body is designed to keep liquid in, but when you get rid of the design, the skin that keeps all the moisture in your body, you're going to dehydrate really fast. So keeping that wound moist, covered with gauze and water in your system, and it's not something you're thinking about, but it's something that we hope you'll remember, is to drink and stay dehydrated. Yeah.
In all of these scenarios, I think shock is something we need to think about, you know.
And unfortunately, shock is a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big thing that your body is trying to compensate for how it's been injured, and it can stop and try to force your body to to only operate the things that are absolutely essential, as the rest of it is starting to decay and die. So your body goes into a state of shock, and if you don't reverse that, it can actually, that's what causes death, the shock. It's not the injury, it's actually shock that kills you. So, unfortunately, that's another one that we don't, I wish I could give you guys all the time in the world to cover all the things that we could do. So, we stop the burn. Let me test your knowledge on stopping the pain. Okay, you are, scenario. Let's do, you guys know what these are? Okay, these are CPR masks that you can keep. It also has a reminder on there on how often you should pump versus breathe for them. The going standard now is to continue the pumping and not worry about the breathe, because they're finding a lot of first responders don't want to put their mouth on someone, and so they don't initiate CPR. So we're finding that it's better just to keep the blood circulating. But there's that. So this is a face mask that you can keep on your keychain, helps you remember. So here's the scenario for stop the pain would be you are reaching up to grab something off the top of the refrigerator, and you forgot that you were cleaning behind it earlier that day and had left the bleach bottle at the top and didn't secure the lid on it very good. So as you reach for the thing that's behind that bottle, you accidentally knock it over and it pours into your eye. What do you do? He's answered one before. I'm gonna go for you.
Run underwater.
Yes, and how do you do that?
Right.
So you turn on the faucet and put your eyes.
Do you put both eyes in there?
Well, yeah,
Did both eyes get it?
they did, yeah.
Okay. So you want to, if it's a chemical, you want to start the water, let's say it's this eye, you want to start the water running this way so that it doesn't spill into the other eye, right? And you're going to run that for 20 minutes in order to get that out and have someone else call poison control and see what else you need to do in that situation. If it hits both eyes, you can take a water bottle like that, punch a hole in it and squeeze it and spread it down this way. You can get your body right underneath it. And I mean, it's kind of awkward, but you can make it happen. You can carry eye wash in your, they sell and make eye tips for water bottles that you can carry, and you can take it and attach it to a water bottle and do it that way. Any other thoughts?
I mean, the stuff that you purchased, there's these silicone cups that you can put eye wash in and they'll seal around your eye and you can lean back. Well, that's for flushing, right?
Yeah, no,
That's
that's a good one to go to next. So you're outside and you're raking leaves and a bit of that dust gets up and it gets in your eye. What's the first thing you don't do? Rub! Why don't we rub? Why do we want to rub? Yes, the scratches. Thankfully, the eye is one of the quickest healing organs of the body. So as long as you can get that cleared out and clean, it actually recovers quite quickly. And flushing is the best way to do that. So that cup, a little bit of saline if you have it. If you have water, just looking down and up and flushing it as best you can, coming down, see if you see it in there. Do that over and over again. So having something that can suction up next to your eye is a great way to do that. Any questions?
My reflex is the eye doesn't want to open. My reflex is that the eye just wants to shut. And if I've got a cup on it, how am I gonna hold it open?
That is so true. That is so true. And one of the tips and tricks we found for people who can't quite open their eyes is just to have them lay back on their, lay down on the ground and close their eyes, look up, and drop it on the innermost eye and just ask them to blink.
Okay.
Right? So it just naturally floods out. So that's another option too. But cups, yeah, that's fantastic. You can sit there and just kind of blink it out.
Thank you.
In each situation with my kiddos who are younger, anytime you are injured, after you've taken care of your injury, you were calm, and you help the person take care of the injury, what's the next thing you do? Do you need to tell anyone?
No.
This is the man who cut himself in the back of the van with a pocket knife. I'm telling you, this kid just keeps me going. He cut himself with a pocket knife because he got a brand new pocket knife. And he really liked it. And we told him not to play with it in the car. And we were on a long trip to Washington State. And he decided to whittle something. What was back there to whittle?
I was bored and so I thought it was fun. And I cut my hand pretty quick.
So he cut his hand pretty good, but because he was in the very back of the the van, we didn't know about it. He was super quiet. And he kept that, and what he decided to do is stick it in his pocket and just kind of like hold it there. And by the time we got to the next gas station, I thought he was wearing khaki pants when he got in, and when he got out, it was camo. And I was like, what happened? And somehow it came out, and, you know, he was afraid of his pocket knife being taken away. But something that Jake and I tell everybody, yes, Liberty.
He said it was Capri Sun juice. Yes, he did.
Yes.
He goes, it's just Capri Sun juice.
That's right, we tried to cover it up again. We're learning. He is not like that anymore. Sort of. So, anyways, when something happens, we tell people all the time, as you're learning how to use something, you're going to make mistakes. That's a part of the process, and you just need to learn from it, but you need to also be brave enough to ask for help. So anytime that you get injured and you've taken care of it, make sure you tell a grown-up or an adult that that's happened. As you're teaching this at home to your grandchildren or kids, these are great tips that will save them lots of hurt and pain down the road. So, stop the bleed. That's a great one to go to next. Okay, scenario. This is getting into our big stuff. So I've got a first aid kit here that we're going to give for the bonus one, stop the bleed, because this one's a little bit trickier. So this is a CPR, just showing the wearers like Vanna White. Like this is a mask, right, that you can use in a CPR situation with gloves. And you can actually pop that out and breathe into it for them, okay? So if they drowned or anything like that, got this mask. All right, so for this mask, here's our scenario for bleeding. Let me look one up here. Let's pull some of these out. Oh, okay. You and your friend are walking along the reservoir over here at Springville, and you step on a piece of glass, and you look down at your foot and it's gushing blood. The glass is no longer in your foot, but it is bleeding profusely. What do?
Pressure issue.
Yes.
Put pressure on it.
Put pressure. What does that look like? What would be the scenario? You're not around any first aid. What would you grab to put pressure on it? And you get that side of it. Yes, you can.
Like maybe like any type of clothing.
Would you want to pick the dirtiest item you have?
No.
I've got a sock in there.
Yeah, and would you want to wrap it? No. What's the point of the pressure?
Stop the
Direct pressure first, if that's the kind of wound it is. Because,
Yeah. Yeah. Next step, Jake, for pressure.
After you've got the pressure on there,
So you've gone through all the effort of stopping the bleed. What do you got to do next?
you gotta clean it.
Yeah, which might start the bleeding again, and that's where this scenario comes in again, right? It's usually those deep ones that if there's any kind of dirt or anything in that injury, it's gonna take it a lot longer to heal. So, if I had more time, I would tell you guys how to suture. But I don't. And I would show you how to use benzoin, which is a great thing. It's usually in a bottle. Have you guys ever heard of this before?
No, what is it?
It's a glue, is what it is,
It's sap
essentially.
from a tree.
Say it again.
Sap from
Yeah,
a tree.
sap from a, so it's a natural glue, right? But you just put it on like you would super glue and let it kind of get tacky to the touch. And then you can place any Band-Aid that you have on that, and it's gonna make it extremely adhesive. So things like steri strips, are you guys familiar with steri strips? Would stick a whole lot better with one of these, and that way you're not having to change it as often. So if you're not in a scenario where you can stitch something up, or it's an emergency situation Whether that's, when we talk about home emergency situations, we're talking about natural disasters, and we're talking about economy disasters. Maybe you just do not have insurance right now. Maybe you just don't have the funds. Maybe you are relying on what's in your house to get you through to the next month. So whichever disaster it is, if this is the scenario you're looking at, this is definitely an option. So you would have to clean that wound out, and they are finding now that the best way to heal a wound is to keep it dry or wet.
Wet.
Wet. A wound heals faster wet. So, and it's counterintuitive to everything we've been taught, right? We want it to air and get that scab, but underneath that scab creates a barrier that infection can't get out from. That's why when we've kind of steered clear a little bit of, we used to teach crazy glue. Yeah, crazy glue and kind of glue it shut. And that will keep the infection out. What we were finding is that infection couldn't get in, but it couldn't get out. So, yeah.
I wanna know what kind of tree it comes from. You know?
Benzoin tree? No, I have no idea. I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay,
If you look up tincture of benzoin,
okay.
it'll tell you, and it's a weird name. It's like a strange sounding Z or X name of a tree.
And some of these things might be easier to find. So I'm gonna kind of jump around a little bit, but this is an interesting book that I found. And there are a million books out there. But this is, as we go into home preparedness, this book is written by 2 doctors and 1 prepper. He doesn't call himself a prepper, but he saw Dr. Neves, who is a specialist in Venezuela for breast surgery, trained in Italy, was there when the Venezuelan economy crashed. And she is now sought after for, it's on the back of your paper. This one's on the back of your paper. And she was very aware of the 10 top things that ran out, the 10 top things that people were willing to barter for, and some of the other things that made do until the process could get going again. Kind of like COVID. We were waiting for toilet paper forever, right? Because it was stuck in those warehouses and we were reliant on the restock. Pharmacies work the same way. They only stock what they need. And so when you think about prescription meds or, okay, yeah, I really am jumping for a second. But I'm gonna go ahead and jump here to this one. I'm not gonna ask you who's on prescription meds. I'm on a prescription med, right? So if I stay on top of ordering those prescriptions as they come up instead of as I need them, they will be there in stock and maybe in surplus until if something should come up, both natural or personal disaster in my life, that would keep me in stock with it a little bit longer than I normally would. The other thing that I encourage you to do is to don't throw them out. Okay, so they're finding that when a company, and I purposely bought brand new things to show you. So let's take the ibuprofen. This is going to expire in 2027. And this is going to expire in 2026. All of these companies are required by FDA to say when something starts, how long can it last? They are not motivated to put that research in longer than 3 years. So typically all medications have been tested for 3 years. Yep, it's still potent, and that's the expiration date. We're gonna slap on it. The military has gone through and tested everything, and they're finding that actually this stuff is pretty good for 10 years, 5 years. 5 years typically is your situation, but Jake gave me this, and I'm gonna share it with you because it's kind of this scenario that I'm creating. But one of the things we keep in our kits is an EpiPen. They're extremely expensive, and they're really hard to get a hold of. But this is one that he got way back when he was in Journey, which was several years ago. But I keep it in my kit because this is better than nothing. And it's not that they become dangerous, they just become less powerful. And it usually happens within 10% of its potency after a 10-year span. So you're looking at, okay, 5 years, maybe I'm looking at 95% potency. 10 years, maybe I'm looking at 85% potency, right? It's better to have it than not have it at all in an emergency situation. So my Rachel Olsen counsel is don't throw it out. I know they're trying to, yeah, don't throw it out. So any other thoughts on that one? Okay. All right, the bonus scenario right here. All right, you are backpacking. This is a doc first aid kit. So this is, yeah. You are biking with your family at Pablo Creek Canyon, nice paved pathway, and you hit a rock and you go flying down a ravine. You finally come to a standstill and you notice that there's an ache in your side, and you look down at your side and there's a broken limb sticking right outside of your gut. Again, scenarios we have witnessed. Okay, what, you can't, because I ran this scenario by you. I gotta share this real quick because I thought this was funny. I asked Liberty I asked one of my children earlier today, I was like, so, would you come to me with my ear injury? She's like, what kind of injury? I said, a burn. She's like, no, I go to Jake. I'm like, what would you come to me for? And she's like, I go for like a limb broken in my body. And I'm like, what's the difference between those two things? I'm like, what would you go to Dad for? She's like, the spiders, because you'd make me do it. Sure, you're a spider killer. Yeah, you're welcome. Little insight into our family. Anyway, what do you do?
Try to break it off up higher, but you don't yank it out of yourself.
Yes, okay, say it's already detached from the teeth.
Detached.
What do you do?
Well, I don't yank it out myself, but try to like secure it.
Maybe I should
somehow,
say,
like,
what
to-
don't you do?
Don't
Yes,
remove it.
yes. Don't remove it. Why don't we remove it?
It's gonna shred stuff in there and break pieces off in there. My brother-in-law had to have 3 surgeries to get a stick out of his foot last summer.
That is one of the reasons.
The branch is the only thing that's stopping them from it.
Yeah, it's a plug. Anything that you poke into your body becomes a plug. So if and the hard ones is when it happens to your eye. So I want to talk about penetrating injuries for just a second, and then we'll move on to home remedies and any other questions you guys have with first aid, because I want to open this up to questions and answers if you have them. Penetrating injuries. So you want to leave those things in, and that is definitely when you need to call the next level of care, right? So if it is to get into your eye, what is it that you're doing? Who can walk me through what you think you need to be doing for a penetration to the eye? Yeah.
Cover both eyes,
Yes, how come?
because your eyes travel with each other, so
That's
even if you
true.
try to cover
Your
one,
eyes your eyes will continue to move in the same
Yeah.
direction, and if one eye is
Looking
injured, so in order to keep that eye still, you need to cover the other eye. You would put a donut wrapped sock, anything to kind of go around that penetration, and then wrap it with a sleeve or anything else that you have. Okay, so home management. So when you think about stocking your first aid kit, you guys can come up later and go through this is my boogie kit. This is what I take with me when I run or go to different scenarios. Everything that's listed on your list is in this kit. So and then plus some. And Jake will be back in a minute to talk about his first aid kit. A first aid kit is only as good as you know how to use it. It's gonna do nothing for you if you don't know what those items are used for. So if you have questions about any of those items listed on your first aid kit, look it up. And I'm just gonna briefly go through some of the options here, because is there anything on here that you guys wanna ask questions about? How about if I go that way? Thank you.
Hydrocortisone?
Yeah, which one?
Hydrocortisone.
Hydrocortisone. Hydrocortisone is for itching. That is the relief cream that you can put on for allergy reactions, as well as for anything that you touch that's a plant-based. So talking about some of the different areas that happen, you can use it for insect bites, bee stings, more comfort cream than it is anything else. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And my question's on, you've got honey up there, tell me about the honey.
I'm gonna have Jade come up here and talk about the honey.
Okay.
Jade, this is your scenario, but, so you know what I've got up here, I've got the filters. So they can see what that looks like. I've got local grown, Manuka, and filters. So that's what I have
Yeah.
up here.
If she's squeamish, this part is a little bit not good. Cause I'm gonna show some pictures, so anybody that doesn't wanna see kind of pictures that are a little bit, well, they're kind of graphic, so they just show some blood and things. Anyway, so like I said, I became an EMT, and I went to my very first primitive skills camp. And I stumbled upon this lady named Kat, and she was teaching herbal medicine. And it was herbal first aid. And I thought, I like medical things. And I sat through her first class, and I didn't leave the whole week. And now being an instructor there, I'm like, I was that annoying student. I didn't leave her alone. Like at lunch, I'm still like talking to her, I'm bugging her about things. But she started to preach this weirdness about honey. And, you know, she was talking about how her mentor, his name was Peter Bigfoot, and that he had cut off the tip of his finger, and that he was able to grow the tip of his finger back. And I was like, what? This is weird, right? Because if this was real, they'd teach me in EMT school or paramedic school that this is possible. And she said that he stuck a jar of honey on the end of his finger and taped it on there and didn't take it out, and then his finger grew back. And I was just like, she's crazy, right? But it bugged me enough that I kept messaging her after, and I'm like, tell me more about the honey. And she was telling me how honey that is natural, that's not been pasteurized, has healing properties to it. And that in the pasteurization, they heat it up to a point and it kind of kills that. Well, I went home kind of on purpose to disprove her. I was like, I don't think this is real. And I'm gonna test her on this, because if this isn't real, I think all the other weird stuff she's telling me is probably not real either, right? Because it was so different than the stuff I learned as an EMT. And so I went home and I cut my hand. I didn't do it on purpose. I waited. I got hurt, put it on there, and it healed real quick. And I thought, nah, it's not a good test, because what if I'm just like Wolverine and I heal fast anyway, right? My brother showed up, and he went to the U, and apparently bowling is a class up there. And he bowled so much with both hands that he had equal blisters on both fingers. And I'm like, this is perfect. Because I was taught anything that you would put Neosporin on, you could put honey on, right? And so he got the blisters that same day. They were starting to get red, they were painful. And I said, okay, I'm gonna use you as a guinea pig. And I put honey on the one and nothing on the other. And then I just put a Band-Aid on it, right? And the next morning I took off the Band-Aid, and you could still see the circle of where the blister was gonna be, but you could tap it, there was no pain. And the other was red and inflamed and painful. And I was like, okay, that's good. My dog kind of got hit by a car or ran under a car, and it skinned him. It took like his skin off. And I kept honey on there, and it healed him so fast that I was like, there might be something to this, right? And I'm telling my family when I go up to Sunday dinners, I'm telling them about my experiments with honey. And my then brother-in-law, his name's Doug, he's a carpenter, and he was routering, I don't know if that's the word, but anyway, there was a big beam, had a knot in it. He hit that knot with the router, and it spun out, and it hit his finger, and it took off the tip of his finger. And I guess they, work med, they sent him to the hospital, and the hospital said, just keep it clean. You're gonna be missing the tip of your finger forever. Took out a chunk. Oh, and what I didn't tell you guys is I asked Kat, do you have like pictures of this weird healing capabilities? And she's like, no. And I'm like, how is that always? If this was real, why not, instead of Peter Bigfoot's story, just show me a picture that it really worked, right? So I had that question. Well, my brother calls me up, my brother-in-law, and he said, hey, what's that witchcraft that you do? And I was like, yeah. I said, just keep it moist, you know, moist like she was talking about with honey. You don't let it dry out. You just wanna keep it moist. Create an environment where bacteria can't live, and it enhances the growth. And I said, I've never done it. But the Peter Bigfoot story says that you keep it soaked in honey, and this gray film will begin to form over it. And it's kind of gross, like it looks like you wanna wipe it off. And I said, this is what's reported to me. I've not had this, I haven't ripped off the tip of my finger, so tell me how it goes. And so he did. And within 4 days, he called me and he said, it is healing. And then within a week, he's like, my finger's back. I think I'll have a scar, but my finger's back. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And so from day one, I said, take a picture. Take a picture and just document it, right? And he did. And so I've got the pictures if you guys want to see it, because I didn't want to stand up here and preach to people without being able to show them the truth of this. And I created a collage. That's what I was doing over on my phone earlier. So the top two are basically the same. And you'll notice, I mean, the tip of the finger's gone. And I don't mean to gross anybody out, but you can actually see the tip of his bone coming out of his finger there. And so this is it, and I'll pass it around. This finger right over here, this is a week later. So the flesh had regrown, and he said when he would change the bandage, he just kept a loose bandage with honey on it. He said it was just like you said, it was like gray film, looked gross, like I wanted to wipe it off. And he didn't. And then if you look down below, that's his finger later, and it's fully back. There's a tiny little scar at the top, but it's fully back, so.
So while you guys are
Yeah.
looking at that,
What kind of honey did he use?
So he just used unpasteurized honey, which you can find at Walmart.
yeah,
So
these
both
are
of
all
these,
Walmart bought.
yeah, all of these you could get from Walmart. The grade A means it's been pasteurized. Grade A honey's pasteurized. Still tastes good, but this is natural, unfiltered, unpasteurized honey. Looks like she even has Manuka honey. So this is like super honey from New Zealand. It is.
Yeah, and this is the honey that they use on burn victims there. And it healed it so fast that they were finding they weren't able to create skin grafts that could stretch across the body well enough, and so they had to slow it down, which is why you'll hear about meta honey, because it has a hydrogen peroxide in it. So when you use raw unfiltered honey, it's going to burn a little bit, and that hydrogen peroxide in it working.
Liberty,
So, yeah.
touch the screen so it doesn't go away.
I have a clarifying question. If honey is not available, would you use peanut butter? I want to clarify this.
I feel like this is very specific.
So my daughter, Busy, who's autistic, okay, so she loves listening to Jake's classes. And she went and sat through one of his first aid classes. And while Don and I were away, this one got injured again, and she was in charge.
Without whacking a wasp nest.
Seven times.
Seven wasps.
Seven
Seven wasp stings. And Busy in her mind had cataloged first aid away under foods, because when she heard honey, she thought of her favorite sandwich, which was peanut butter and honey. And she stored that away for first aid. And so when he came in, she's like, we need to put honey on that. You don't put honey on insect bites, but we need to put honey on that. And she goes into the pantry and we're out of honey. But there's peanut butter. So we come home to our son covered in peanut butter. He seemed okay. I mean, it helped. The dirt, Brother Aaron, the dirt helps. So he felt great. She's like, I just remembered it was an ingredient in a sandwich.
That's awesome.
They're listening. It may not compute completely, but they're listening.
Do we know why honey works?
They have analyzed honey.
Yeah.
It has an antimicrobial in it, as well as an antibacterial.
Bee spit.
Say it again.
Bee spit.
There you
Vomit.
go.
Bee vomit.
Yep.
Wow.
It's a
don't kill any
miracle,
bees.
it really is.
It really is.
I have
And-
no stock in big honey, I promise.
Yeah.
I preach it all the time.
And I have found many times as an EMT, someone may be allergic to Bactane, I think it is, Bactane, or some of the other elements in Neosporin and the triple antibiotics, but they won't be allergic to the honey. Very few people are allergic to.
Does that come down from, Indian lore? I mean, is that who started using it?
The Egyptians
The
were
Egyptians
using it.
Yeah.
Oh, where did medicine
Socrates
start?
talked about honey being
Yeah.
used as medicine.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a
Never
lot.
goes bad.
In
No, it
the,
doesn't spoil.
in the East,
It doesn't.
mellification, honey, they would treat wounds, but they'd also mummify bodies in honey,
Oh, yeah.
like to preserve them for a long time. It creates it's a preservative, so.
So reading the Manuka honey, the Manuka is probably the most pure form. It can cost $110 for its highest grade. Okay, so it can be quite expensive where you're spending maybe $5, $8 on unfiltered raw honey, which it works well too, it just works at a faster pace. Yeah.
Can you use honey on an infant?
Okay, so internally, you should not use honey on anyone who is 1 or younger. There is a bacteria in honey that their young stomachs can't process and kill the way we can. And so it can actually make them quite sick.
They can't test for it, so
Can it
they just
be,
say.
I don't know if it can be used topically the same way on an infant, do you?
I've heard that you can,
Okay,
cause it's not being
So
taken in.
you'll
As
have-
they're not eating it.
Yeah,
I had
not
a niece who was in the
internally.
hospital for several weeks
Yeah.
because she got
and in
botulism.
fact, almost all honey, like the filtered one doesn't say that.
She didn't eat honey.
But the unfiltered ones will say on the back, they all have a warning sign on there for not giving it to anyone under 1.
It wouldn't be going into your gut. It would just be absorbed in the skin,
Yeah,
and so it would depend on the sensitivity of the person, it seems like to me. Because it's the gut that's the problem,
I don't want,
digesting.
yeah, and I can't say anything definitively because I don't know of any research that says one way or the other how fast an infant's skin absorbs things, so use your best judgment on that one.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
So I was teaching this class one year, and a lady said, anything I can put Neosporin on, I can use honey, can I use it on eczema? And I said, I have no idea, I've never done that, it would be cool to see, it would be very sticky. Cause she was paying $500 a month for this Neosporin cream for her child's eczema that was very painful, the child couldn't sleep, it was really bad. And she said, my husband's family are beekeepers, so I could go and get some raw honey, and I'm like, well, good for you, it's great. And she reported back the next month, she worked for me at the Journey, and they had taken their child and they put honey on his arms and would wrap it with saran wrap, and she said, no problems. In fact, it actually healed it and caused it to go away, and after about a month, it would begin to come back, and then they could just lightly put it on there and would keep it back, and she's like, she wrote to her doctor, she did all kinds of stuff, and she just said, she wrote it down for me. I said, could you write that for me? Because I just want to be able to show people that this really worked for her, so that was a cool thing. Anyway.
Okay.
So if I eat a lot of honey, I won't have any ulcers?
Or you'll get more ulcers.
Well, you test it, Roger, and try it out, take pictures. So I promised you guys we would be done at an hour, and we never did get the question and answer, but I'm gonna close it just now. We have so much that we could cover. You are welcome to stay and ask Jake and I whatever questions you want, specifically me, because I won't make him stay unless he can. So thank you for coming. Research it, look at it. The books that I put on there are fantastic. They're great resources if you want to look them up on Amazon and order them. Yes.
The book is quite a bit cheaper on ebooks.
Oh, she's already looked. There you go.
On what books?
Abe books.
Abe.
Oh, all right.
ABEBOOKS.
And it walks the home doctor one. Is that the one?
That's
You guys
the
are
home.
welcome to flip through it. I mean, it has everything in there, including how to do your own ingrown toenail. So, I mean, so if you are in a situation where their things aren't readily available, it's a good resource to have just in case, you know. So thank you.
Thank
Feel
you.
free to stay and ask whatever questions you want. And may I just close with this. as I talked about in state conference, my favorite scripture right now is D&C 123:17. We do not have to be afraid of those moments of emergency preparedness that we are going to face, especially if we follow Amber's counsel and we do our best to prepare for it and follow the prophet's counsel, the state president's counsel. If you are prepared, you shall not fear, but also cheerfully do all the things that are in your power, and then stand by with the utmost assurance that you will see Heavenly Father's hand guiding you, because you will. And that is all that we can do, right? So everything else, it's easy to turn that over to the Lord and just say, okay, this is a learning experience, I'm ready, let's go. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know, but thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And we hope not to see you in a medical capacity. So,